FM News Talk 97.1.
On-demand audio.
I wanna be a Care Bear. Oh, it'll be so great when I'm a Care Bear. But I can hardly wait to be a Care Bear and do the things that Care Bears do. Oh, I wanna be a Care Bear like you.
This is The Dana Show.
There's a reason why that cartoon just completely scared me half to death. I never got into Care Bears when I was a kid. Because I didn't, I just, did they get to pick their own, what was represented on their bellies? I'm not quite sure. But nonetheless, by the way, if you're wondering what on earth am I listening to right now, there's a reason why we're torturing your eardrums. Yesterday, and we first brought you, we brought you the full story over at Breitbart.com. But something very interesting took place yesterday after I was off air. I noticed all of this discussion going on the internet and so on and so forth about a Tea Party Express rally that took place in Springfield. And it was just recently. And at this rally was a conservative activist named Scott Boston. Now, and I've told you before that Scott Boston is a friend of mine. The Media Matters people were upset that I wrote this article for Breitbart and that I didn't talk about how I knew him or anything else. But my whole point is, I've already done that on the website, you derp heads. I've already discussed this whole situation. I talked about grassroots activism and stuff with Scott Boston on this website, on the website. So it's not like it's a secret, not like how it's a secret how Media Matters got a bunch of SEIU money after Kenneth Gladney was beaten so that they, I don't know, I'm surmising, could go after and attack black conservatives in the wake of the Gladney beating, or how their boss, George Soros, received money out of the green energy program for Solyndra. So I'm still waiting for those clarifications, boys. I know you're listening. Moving on, though, at this rally that was taking place in Springfield, it was the Tea Party Express. They were driving all over the country. And Sarah Steelman was there. There were a lot of individuals there. Oh, it was in Fenton. Was it in Fenton or Springfield?
Well, there was one down in Fenton. And then
the one in Springfield was the one that was cited.
Yeah, that one.
Yes.
That was the one that was cited.
And at this, and you hear him here in studio with me, Scott Boston was at this event, and he gave a speech about Senator Claire McCaskill. And I made some phone calls, and I was talking to a lot of people who were at the rally. And tell us what your remarks were, and what you were discussing, and then we'll tell you why Scott Boston was visited by the FBI.
Well, I was discussing Claire McCaskill's image within the state of Missouri. She has this Claire Bear moniker, which is some refer to her as. And for me, that calls up an image of a giant Care Bear.
That's why we played the Care Bear music.
And I appreciate that.
I wanna be a Care Bear.
Yeah, see, there you go. So
Exactly.
You're basically saying that she has, dual roles.
Yeah,
She has a dual personality.
Absolutely. I was saying that the image she projects to the voters back in the state of Missouri about the type of policies she supports and the type of are not the same as the person that goes to Washington, D.C. and then votes for Obamacare when 70% of the people in the state have voted to reject it.
Yeah, and that's a good point, too, because that is, when she's in Washington, D.C., it seems as though she's very in step with the rest of, at least the Progressive Caucus, kind of with the
Absolutely.
Democrat Party.
She's a pretty safe vote for Obama and most of his agenda.
But then here in Missouri, which was the first state to really challenge Obamacare at the ballot box, the Prop C, the Healthcare Freedom Act, passed 3-1 in every single county by over 70% of the vote. So people who voted for Claire McCaskill voted for Prop C, which, if you're unfamiliar with Prop C, that Prop C was a proposition that basically made Barack Obama honest. You could, keep your doctor, and you wouldn't be penalized for it. So that's what that was. So
right, people voted overwhelmingly for Prop C.
Yes. So you were discussing this. Where did your speech go from there? Were you giving a speech, or were you ad-libbing?
Well, I was ad-libbing. I was helping to MC the event. I also spoke at one point about the abuses of the IRS and how we need Tea Party groups. But in this case, I was talking about Claire McCaskill and our need to remove her from office in November and to find good conservative candidates to replace her. And I was discussing this image that she has back in Missouri and this narrative that she puts forward. And I was saying that, we need to address that. And I used the term kill the Claire Bear, meaning we need to kill this narrative that she that she puts forward back in the state. I never intended any harm to come to her. I did not ever intend any harm to her. And I believe she knows that, because when I got the initial call that something was going on and that this had somehow become an issue, the call came from a member of the media. The call came from Jake Wagman at the Post-Dispatch.
And we'll talk about that. So you had never meant to... You'd never meant to threaten her. You were talking about the image of the Claire Bear.
Absolutely not. No,
because
I was
that's a
speaking
phrase
strictly metaphorically.
That's a phrase that I've seen a lot in Missouri. I mean, it's been a hashtag on Twitter for a long time. A lot of Missouri conservatives and independents have even used that term. And so, what was the response in the audience? Did anyone come up to you afterwards and say, "Wow, you shouldn't have said that"? Or
no, not at all. I mean, I think it got. I've heard from the reports that got mild applause or something at one. I mean, it was a toss-off line that I was trying to use to get the crowd enthused about being out and rallying for Claire McCaskill's political defeat, and so it was this kind of meme that was going through the media, and I was addressing that. So
when you first found out that what was this, a week ago that this happened?
Yes, this was the tour was through the state last Wednesday and Thursday.
So when you first found out that there was something more being made about your comment than what you had intended, when did you find out? And you were getting into how it wasn't from the authorities or anything.
No.
How did you find out first that this became a big deal?
I received a call from Jake Wagman at the Post-Dispatch asking for comment on this issue. He said that Claire McCaskill had brought on extra security because of my comments, and that was news to me, and that they had seemed threatening or something. And he wanted me to kind of revise and extend my remarks, and, what was I trying to say? And I said I never intended any harm to come to her. It was not a threat. I was speaking strictly metaphorically and referring to Claire McCaskill as a giant Care Bear with a rainbow on her belly. Right. So, this was a purely metaphorical comment at a political rally, engaging in political speech, and and he asked me if law enforcement had contacted me, and I said no, they had not.
And so, how long after you talked to Wagman did the FBI show up at your front door?
About 30 to 40 minutes later.
And what all did the FBI ask you when they knocked on your door?
They were very considerate. They knocked on my door. They asked if I answered it. They said, "Do you know why we're here?" And I said, "Well, Jake Wagman at the Post-Dispatch said that some of my comments that I'd made had resulted in increased security for Claire McCaskill, and I assume that's why you're here." And they said, "Yes, that's right."
So who was it that told Jake Wagman at the Post-Dispatch about this? Because I had reached out to him. I reached out to Sarah Steelman. I reached out to Tea Party Express, so on and so forth. Who was it that tipped Jake? Who told Jake Wagman this? Because I have photos of individuals who were recording at the event, and apparently it was those recordings that ended up making it to what? How did this happen?
I don't know how Wagman got the video or why. I mean, there were two people that were constantly recording and trying to get in Sarah Steelman's face at all the events. They were taking their cameras right up to her when she was attempting to speak with the people who were at the rally, and it was really, we thought, quite rude. Right. So we asked people to try and screen that, and they went over with their flags and things and got.
So he basically, because I had emailed him and I had asked him, and I wrote about this. I asked him, I'm like, well, did you, how did you? Do you have audio of these remarks? Which he said he did. And I don't know why the St. Louis Post-Dispatch won't release the audio, what they say they have, which is kind of interesting because it was brought to my attention before we went on the show, they're in a sunshine request battle themselves right now. But he had said, Wagman told me that he heard about the potential threat earlier in the day, and he inquired about it with the state Democratic Party. They gave me the audio, but he wouldn't say. I asked him, well, who told you of this potential threat? He declined to say who told him. So, I mean,
it certainly could have been the Claire McCaskill's video minders that were walking around taking video who had forwarded it to the Democratic Party. I think that's probably likely. But the fact that she merited an increased security presence and put increased security on, that's not something that they could have known. So I would assume that information would have had to come somehow from Claire McCaskill and her campaign and her staff.
So so you think that they leaked it to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch before anything was even brought to your attention.
Absolutely. Before the FBI got to my house, the press was aware.
And it's important to note that the FBI cleared you. They asked
Absolutely.
They asked you what if you had any guns,
Yep.
what kind of guns you had. They wanted your parents' address,
Yep.
And then they ended up clearing you.
Yes.
So does she still have security even after you've been killed or cleared?
I have no knowledge of that. I have no knowledge of Claire McCaskill's security, and I have no desire to have any knowledge of it. I mean, I certainly apologize to the senator and to the state taxpayers for this increase in Claire McCaskill's security because of this metaphorical comment.
Well, so should we get?
Ridiculous.
Well, and I'm curious because this is, and like I was talking about, political rhetoric. It's never changed. I mean, I just keep thinking of Barack Obama's statements that the Wall Street Journal reported. If they bring a knife to a gunfight, or you don't bring a knife to a gunfight. If they bring a knife, you bring a gun. You punch back twice as hard. Should we get added security because of things that have been said by people within the Democrat Party?
Well, political rhetoric has always been heated, and mostly, and I regret that my choice of words has somehow blown up like this. As I said, I don't think Claire McCaskill honestly believed it was a threat. I mean, I understand investigating it and sending the FBI out and having it clear, but it seemed to me, if you really thought that I was somehow a threat, that you would allow the FBI to come to my house and vet me before you would talk about it to the press. Right.
Yeah, it's really interesting how it unfolded. And we, I believe we've reached out to Senator McCaskill, and we're going to get, we're going to try to get a response from her as well. But I guess that's sort of the era that we live in. Well, I'm curious though, because now if it's, and I understand people have always just, talked like this in politics, and I think people's reaction to it, because nobody, I think, with any right mind would think that you were making a threat to anyone. I mean,
Absolutely
it's not like
not.
you were down occupying anything,
No.
breaking police windshields, or doing anything of the like.
No one at any of the events who heard these remarks took it that way, and I did not intend it that way. And I would hope that this matter could just be cleared up, because I don't want anything to happen to Claire McCaskill other than have her voted out in November. I believe that problems we have are political with her, and I desire a political solution to those problems.
Well, I appreciate you coming in, Scott Boston, and of course, Scott Boston and I, we do the Gateway Grassroots, which is something different than what the Tea Party Express event was.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, and so we're going to explore this topic a little bit more, because there are a lot of layers, and some of the things that some of the progressives have said about all of this, I think, have opened up to greater exploration. So we're going to get into all of that. Plus, we've got statements from Sarah Steelman, and John Bruner is going to come onto the show and discuss his response to all of this as well. More of the Dana Show when we return. Keep it right here.